morning. It's Friday at 9 o'clock, so it's time for Coffee with Karl. I'm Karl from TRIDEC. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this morning. Our theme for today and our show that we'll be talking about is the Road to Recovery, which is the name of the modified phase 1 reopening plan that was announced a little bit more than a week ago. So I'd like to welcome our guests this morning. And in no particular order, I'll start with Mayor Don Britton of Kennewick. Welcome, Mayor.
Good morning. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for joining us this morning. Mayor Ryan Lukson from Richland.
Hello. Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Dr. Amy Person from the Health District. Good morning, Doctor.
Morning.
And I'll just call him our old friend because I think this is third appearance on Coffee with Karl, Rick Dawson from the Health District.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
You must be a really great guest, Rick, because you keep on coming back, and every time we invite you, you're always happy to appear. So thanks for joining us this morning. So as we always do on Coffee with Karl, we'll talk about coffee. I'll kick it off. I got this one actually from Tracy Zhao, who is our Director of Recruitment. You probably can't read it, but it says Economic Development Superhero. It's from a software platform that we use called GIS Planning. When companies are looking to come to the Tri-Cities, they can get on our website and look at available properties. Tracy gave me this mug to use because we've done so many Coffee with Karls. I'm running out of coffee mugs to talk about. So thank you, Tracy, for this one. That's my story. Let's go to Mayor Lukson next. And it doesn't have to be coffee. Anything you're drinking, anything you want to talk about.
Well, I'm kind of double-fisted with the LaCroix and the coffee. I like to do that in the morning, so I stay hydrated.
Right.
But I normally drink out of one of those Ember cups, the ones that I always joke that I only drink my coffee at 135 degrees. So, but today I'm schlepping it with the Keurig City coffee cup that John provided. I got that myself. So yeah, no, I'm a big coffee drinker.
That's awesome. That's so is 135 the ideal temperature to drink coffee?
I don't know. I read that somewhere. It sounded cool, so I decided 135 was what we go with. But you can control it with your phone, which is kind of neat. So you can do like anything from 135 to 160. You set it, and then it just keeps your coffee at that temperature. It's pretty neat.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
it's maybe a future discussion on Coffee with Karl. Maybe we can get somebody with one. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor Britton. How about your coffee story or coffee you're drinking this morning?
Well, I don't have the high-tech thing that Mayor Lukson has. My coffee cup is from my granddaughter. It does pop on it. She gave it to me for my birthday a couple of years ago. So it's an inspirational coffee cup. Whenever I need a little inspiration, I just look at that. Everything becomes all right.
There you go. I guess a little reminder of what we're doing our job for, right? Like who are we here for? That's awesome.
Right.
Dr. Person, how about you? What are you drinking this morning, or got a coffee story for us?
Sure. I'm drinking water this morning because I've been up since 4 o'clock. So I've already had my coffee, hours and hours ago. This mug, which you can't see anything on, came from my nieces. So this is just my reminder that sometimes even when you can't see things, there's good things there and you got to keep the faith. There
you go. That's a great story. Thank you. And Rick, how about you? What do you got for the coffee this morning?
I'm drinking in my standard comeback cup because like Amy, I've been up since about 4 and I've been in the office since about 6:30. So this would be cold coffee if I didn't have a sealed coffee mug. It is just a little Nantucket blend with some Crunch vanilla creamer.
All right.
It's the only coffee I'll have all day.
Okay. Well, let's get into our discussion. Yeah, Road to Recovery. I'd like to start with the Health District and talk about the Road to Recovery, our modified phase 1 opening, just kind of an overview of some of the parameters, what businesses can open. Maybe start with Dr. Persons. Do you feel you're okay starting with that question this morning?
Sure. Because I know, it's kind of been the burning question and still been the burning question. I think the challenge that we've really had in Benton-Franklin counties is that compared to the other counties in the state, we really weren't quite at the level everybody else was when they were allowed to open other things. But, you know, on the other hand, it's been a long time that things have been closed, and a lot of people, you know, kind of desperate to get things going. So we did some negotiating with the state to allow us to open some things up. I think the challenge is that we weren't able to open up everything that was allowed in some other counties, even in the modified 1.5. And the ones we chose were really based on, you know, what we heard from the public and what we, you know, heard when we talked with our commissioners about, you know, what are the things that people are most desperate to kind of have immediately. So, yeah, I don't know that you can really put a lot of rhyme and reason behind it other than, you know, this is what the public, we kind of heard from the public. So that's the ones we focused on. And I don't know if Rick wants to add his.
No, and I think that's a good overview of kind of how we got to where we're at. And while it's not where we want to go, but it's a start. And I think that's probably the most important thing. This is a start, you know, on this roadmap to recovery. I mean, and we needed to start somewhere. So we have, you know, with things that really are important to us. I mean, construction and manufacturing, restaurants, a little bit of retail, being able to get your hair cut, getting your dog groomed, and you would be surprised that has been, over the last 3 months, that has been the #1 concern that was raised with our health district, of people and dog groomers, probably more so than any other industry.
All right, well, Tri-Cites loves our dogs, right?
Gotcha.
Puppies
So I think
and parks.
that's right. I think we've been joined by Mayor Saul Martinez from Pasco. Welcome, Mayor Martinez.
Thank you. I apologize. We've been having some technical difficulties, but yes, where are we? I'm happy to be here. Thank you for allowing us to be, get on this show and talk to our community. It's been a pretty interesting last 5 or 6 days since we got the okay to open up. There's been a lot of good things happening. I've actually been to a couple of businesses, and the very first one was getting my hair trimmed down a little bit, as others have maybe been talking about. And I will tell you, as I talked about it in our previous meeting this morning, it is amazing to see how our small businesses are cooperating and getting started and being really adamant about following the rules and caring about their citizens and their patronage, the people who go in and use their services. It's just awesome to see things moving forward, and looking forward to making sure that we're testing appropriately and making sure and doing everything we can to keep our numbers down, and just excited to be here. Thank you for having us this morning.
Oh, you bet. Thanks for joining us. And that was a great overview of Pasco. Let's go to Mayor Britton next. And Mayor Britton, you want to talk a little bit, just like Mayor Martinez, on how are things going in Kennewick, and what are you seeing as far as this next phase of reopening?
Well, a lot of the same things that Mayor Martinez had mentioned. You know, I've been in several businesses and down to the mall. It was really driving down Canal Drive and Columbia Center Boulevard to refreshingly see vehicles and cars down in the mall parking lot. Retail is so important to the city of Kennewick, but just the citizens have been so ready to get out. We've been asking for that for quite some time. Driving by Ross Dress for Less yesterday morning, you would have thought it was Black Friday. There was people that had been camped out all night. It was at 8 o'clock in the morning. They didn't open until 10 a.m. So there was, that obviously is a very important retail establishment here in the Tri-Cities. But the businesses that I've been into are practicing the requirements. They're making sure that people are wearing masks and social distancing and doing what they need to do to keep their business open. And so I'm very proud of our community. It's been a tough 4 months, And I'm looking forward to moving up to phase 2 and beyond at some point. I'm really interested in our positive case counts in 2 to 3 weeks and those results.
That's great. Thank you. Lukson, how about Richland? How are things going? And you want to give us kind of an opening statement on the road to recovery, the modified phase 1 we're into?
Well, I think like everybody, better than a couple of weeks ago. I think we need a Ross dress for less in Richland. I need to get some of that sales tax back to us. But I was shocked to see the line we had there. I didn't realize it was that popular. But no, it was as Don knows, and Dr. Amy and Rick, it was a long slog with the governor just to get us where we're at now to be able to convince them. And I just want to also thank Rick and Dr. Amy for how hard they're working. I wasn't up at 4 a.m, so I know that the whole community appreciates what they do and how hard they're working to keep us safe and help open us up. But just a lot of conversations. I'm new to this position. I've been on council just for 2.5 years, so I've kind of thrown into the mix and just trying. For me, it's just a passion to try to be able to help some of our small businesses. I mean, I've had people literally call me crying, tell me that they're going to go bankrupt, that we have to do everything that we can to try to help them. And so trying to balance the community safety and people's livelihood is a really difficult thing to do. And I think we're at the right balance. I think we're doing well, and I hope that our numbers start to reflect what our mass usage is. As that goes up, I hope our numbers start to go down in a couple of weeks. So I guess we're kind of in wait and see mode right now, and we'll see in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And if everyone keeps doing what they're doing, I think we're headed in the right direction.
That's great. Thank you. I want to remind everybody that's joining us today that this is Coffee with Karl. We do have the question and answer box open at the bottom of the Zoom call. If there are any questions that come up, we'll be using that feature so we can ask our guests questions. If you're on Facebook Live, you can add a question in the comment, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. I might just throw in that, as the governor was here last week, the weeks kind of all moved together, and I think obviously the health district met with them, elected officials met with them. We had a business roundtable that we kind of joined them in. And when he was here on Tuesday, we kind of collectively pitched, like, if we could get to a modified phase 1, we might have a chance to influence more people as far as mask wearing and effective behaviors. And I was really encouraged when he had the press conference last Thursday that he actually said some of that back to us. So I think that's representative of what everybody's been working on together. And I think it really is, to Mayor Lukson's point, we're going to have the chance to see if actually opening where the people have to wear masks in stores can help bring our numbers down just in changing people's behaviors. And I think it's a great shot. And I think it's, like I say, it's a great representation of the community coming together to, try to address this issue.
Yeah, Karl, we really tried to convince him just to let businesses lead the way. And I think at first he was skeptical, but I think he listened and he put that order in statewide. So I think it's great, and hopefully we can be the kind of model for the state.
Oh, exactly.
Hey, Karl, can I chime in here a little bit after?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lukson? Yeah, when I'd like to share to the community that when the governor came in for that meeting, I couldn't be more proud of the leadership in our Tri-City area. Every one of the mayors, and we had representatives from the hospital that came in and just, basically provided the information to Governor Inslee to keep basically get him in touch with what's happening in our communities. I won't say that he doesn't know, but I just, the way they explained it and the way we as a team in the Tri-Cities provided the information, I felt that there was a lot of information that he wasn't aware of, and it was very hard for him to be able to tell us that he didn't make a decision that day, which was very disappointing to me. And I could just see the faces, get a little bit long there from all of our leaders. But it was so worth it because it appears that between the health district and all the leaders, they went back and basically him telling us that the only tool in our toolbox to get this moving forward was to wear masks. And so the next day, a lot of the same people went and did a press conference to promote that. And it was amazing how the community came together overnight and finally buckled down and said, you know, if this is what it takes to open up our stores and our businesses, we're going to do it. And there was a dramatic increase in the mask usage, which I think was a big catalyst for making that decision and allowing the governor to get us to open up. And I was just really proud of our leadership and how passionate they were, and just seeing how much everybody really cares. And I think it all paid off, and we're just excited to be at this point at this time, obviously with a lot of work moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah, Karl, this
That's great. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to just kind of follow up on the previous two mayors. One of the other things that I think really benefited us was the four cities, going out and doing their own survey of mask wearing. And I think, as Saul had mentioned, we did that press conference the day after the governor was in town, emphasizing the need to wear masks to get us to a new phase. I think that resonated, and the survey helped when we presented that to the Department of Health the following day. It showed our usage up into the 90%. And so I think that really sent a strong message to Governor Inslee that we were serious here in the Tri-Cities about making this work. And so I just wanted to compliment our staff. They went out twice in the morning and in evenings to do those surveys, and I think it really paid off.
That's great, Mayor. Thank you. We've got a couple questions leading up to this time together this morning, and then in the question and answer box about masks. And let's start with the health district. And Dr. Person and Rick, could you guys give us what is the requirement regarding mask wearing for the general population based on the governor's order and then local orders? And then maybe we'll go around to the cities and just talk about, I think there's this ongoing question from many people about enforcement and realizing that, this is the first time that we've ever collectively been through this kind of a pandemic situation. And there's many things that evolve and change, sometimes daily. And so can we talk a little bit about what level we're at for masks and their usage, and then how do we enforce them? We'll start with Dr. Person.
Sure. So mask usage, essentially everybody, when they're out in public and they aren't going to be able to maintain that 6 foot distance, needs to be wearing a mask. Businesses need to be requiring that. There are exceptions to that. So kids under 2 don't need to wear a mask. Kids between 2 and 5, if they're supervised, should be wearing a mask. Obviously, some people may have medical reasons they can't wear a mask. And I think what's important to understand for that is that businesses can still require people to wear a mask if they have somebody who, because of that disability, cannot wear a mask. They need to offer them some kind of accommodation, whether that's curbside service or some kind of virtual service to meet their needs. So I think there are some people that sometimes confuse that American Disabilities Act was saying that means that if I'm exempt from wearing a mask, you have to allow me in, and that is not the case. The other thing I think that's really important and where we're really trying to focus is that anything we ask people to do, or even anything that we require people to do, there are always going to be people who will absolutely hate it, refuse it. They would rather get into a fight than do it. Those are really going to be the minority. And I think sometimes, I don't know how much it's worth our energy to focus on that small minority that doesn't want to help. I think, what we've seen and what we've really tried to do is sort of focus on that majority that I think initially was kind of like, masks are a hassle and I don't really know if I need to do it. I hear people say, maybe you should, but is it really a big deal? So I think when we had the mayors and the commissioners and it being a requirement, I think it made a lot of people in the majority go, all right, this is a big deal. We do need to do it. And so that's, what we want to do is, encourage the people that maybe were reluctant, make sure that we're thumbs up to the people that, had their masks on months ago. And then I think for the other ones, we just keep trying to, push the message, this is really for the good of the people around you, for the good of the community. But, I think it's not worth our energy to make ourselves crazy trying to get every last person that would rather pick a fight than put on a mask.
You bet. Rick, anything to add to that?
Well, and I think that kind of sums some things up, but I think it's very important that we all remember we need to be kind and, ask questions, offer solutions to people. And if we can do those sort of things but not get in a fight, that's really kind of important. That education goes a long way, and really doctors very, very, very correct when we think about, we're usually going to have that few people, if I tell them once to do something, they're going to do it, and maybe 2 of those people will do it out of 10, and then I'm going to have 6 of them that I'm going to have to do some talking to, and then I might have 2 at the bottom end that say, I'm not doing this, and it doesn't matter what you do, but I need to really work on that 6 in the middle, because that's where we're going to gain our most traction.
That sounds good. Let's start with Mayor Lukson. You want to talk about Richland, and I know that this has been an ongoing discussion. There's been some news articles about enforcement, and I think when we talk about enforcement, this is a public health issue, but people a lot of times think about police. But how are you handling this in Richland, or is there anything you can add to this conversation about enforcing mask wearing?
I think, like Dr. Amy said, I mean, the point is really to stay positive. Let's focus on the 90+% of people that are doing it, and we really encourage our citizens not to take the law into their own hands, so to speak. I mean, we don't need to be calling people out or shaming them. The business owners are the ones that are enforcing this, and they're mandated now by Dr. Amy and the governor to not transact business with these people, and they need to accommodate certain people if they can, and they can be kind. So I think that's where we need to focus. The couple people that aren't complying, the business owners have options. If they really are upset and the person won't leave, they can call law enforcement. We try to educate people. Like Dr. Amy said, they don't have to let someone in that isn't wearing a mask, and they don't have to accommodate them in that fashion. They should try to accommodate them by coming up with an alternate way to provide service. But, we really haven't got to that point yet. It's mostly education. I mean, theoretically, you could trespass someone or something like that, but we really just don't want to get to that point. And I've heard stories of people kind of going up and shaming other people and getting in fights, and we would just really encourage people not to do that. You don't know, they could have a medical condition, or like Dr. Amy said, there's just a couple people that just aren't going to listen. And to me, let's just not focus on those people. Let's focus on the positive and the 90+% of the people that are. And, I think that's all that matters.
You bet. Mayor Martinez, how about Pasco? You have something to add as far as this, enforcing mask wearing or?
Well, yeah, sure. I just think a lot of it is education. And, I'm not a doctor, so I can't, like Dr. Amy, and she's made it very clear. But my understanding is, these mask wearing is not for you. It's not going to prevent you from getting the virus. This mask wearing is more so that, foreign objects or such as saliva doesn't get on surfaces that might be touched by someone else and then contracted by ingestion of some sort. This is more of a campaign to just do what we've always done as Americans and, care for each other. And it's more of, for me, it's just, again, doing what we have to do to keep each other safe. And, it's a minor inconvenience. I shouldn't say nobody. I don't like it personally, but I do it because it's the right thing to do. And it's just a minor inconvenience. And so far, again, just walking into the Walmart over on Road 68, they will not allow anybody to go in without a mask. And everybody's cooperating. I think for the most part, you know, of course, you're always going to have some resistance from a few individuals, but I'm really proud of everybody. So far, everything's going well, and like Mayor Lukson said, it's, you know, it's fresh, but it's going well for us, and I'm actually after this meeting going to go do a commercial for our Spanish-speaking folks, because we have a very high percentage of essential personnel that works in labor out in agriculture, and we're just going to try to keep not enforcing, but educating and encouraging them to do their part in keeping this controlled. So far, so good, Carl.
That's great. Thank you. Mayor Britton, how about Kennewick? Where this enforcement, and what are you seeing, and how are things going?
Well, I think it's reflective of the community that we live in, that my comments are going to echo Pasco's and Richland's. We live in a great community, and we live in a compassionate community. The mask wearing, as it's been mentioned, 90% plus are wearing the mask. There's reasons maybe these other people aren't. I think we just need to concentrate and recognize that wearing that mask is a show of respect to our fellow citizens. It's not a big deal. Put the mask on. It prevents you from spreading. Education's the key. I mean, our law enforcement has many other things that they're doing. And as it's been mentioned before, if a business has somebody that possibly won't leave the premises, then it's their option. If they choose to contact law enforcement, but really it's education and it's the respect of our fellow citizens. And I think you're seeing that in the entire Tri-City area, that we really do live in a great community.
You bet. No, those are great comments. And I think, you know, as we're all out a little bit more in the public now, it feels like there's a sense of frustration, and hopefully with this modified phase 1, people will start to feel like we're getting back to normal and feeling a little bit better, and some of that frustration level will go down that causes some of these, you know, isolated incidents that we're talking about. In the 1.5, one of the provisions of that is that we can have some restaurants open with modified outside seating. And I know the cities have really championed this to try to, you know, work with restaurants to actually add outside seating. And maybe let's start with the mayors, and maybe Mayor Britton, you could kick us off on this one. But what's going on in Kennewick to try to, you know, work with businesses to get them opportunities to serve their customers in a safe manner?
Well, that's what we're trying to do, and we actually passed an ordinance on Tuesday night with a temporary moratorium on outside parking lot requirements to enable these businesses to use up to 50% of their allowed parking area for outdoor seating. It's important that a lot of these businesses are locally owned. They're not major corporations, and we need to assist these folks in their business and survive. They've been doing to-go orders, and so we passed that Tuesday night. I know the other cities have done similar things, so we want to be consistent in our message to our business owners out there. And I think that is, I know we talked about dog grooming. I think Rick mentioned that's been the #1 complaint from the citizens, not on my end. As mayor, what I'm getting from our citizens is, I want to go eat somewhere and I want to have a drink. And not being able to do that, that's been the #1 issue that I've been approached by. So hopefully, you know, it's a 1.5. This will allow some of that frustration to go away and allow the citizens to realize that there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. You know, we are trying to work hard to alleviate that frustration. So that's what we're doing here.
Mayor Lukson, how about Richland? Are you guys, have you passed, or are you working on something similar to, I think it's a great idea, right? Like, let's reduce the parking requirements. So if you want to put a few tables out in the parking lot, at least it gives people a chance to go enjoy the restaurants that they've been really anxious to go back. But how about Richland?
Yeah, we've done something similar. I think Pasco has as well. I'm assuming West Richland has or is soon. I think, you know, I think it's just important for businesses to know that we're doing everything we can to accommodate them, to help them. We're being creative. We're thinking outside the box to really push this, you know, keeping everything safe, but also keeping trying to keep our small businesses alive. And that's what we told the governor is that, we're dying here and, we're doing the best we can, but we need a little bit of relief. We got to give some of our people hope. And so I think that's what we did recently in this kind of modified phase 1.5. I hope that, if we keep doing what we're doing and our mass numbers in a matter of 3 weeks went from 50% to over 90%, if we can keep that up, I have no doubt in the next 3 to 4 weeks, maybe we'll move on to, I know I'm personally going to push to move to real 1.5. It's crazy to even talk about these things because this is like common knowledge. I mean, 3 months ago, what is 1.5, modified 1.5, but now it's insane. I mean, we were talking about animal control was the hot topic in Richland and I think Kennewick and Pasco 4 months ago, and it's still an important issue, but it's just crazy to me to think how the world has changed. But yeah, I mean, we're, trying to push for, I know one thing we pushed for before was 25% indoor capacity at restaurants. And hopefully if our numbers are good in the next 3 or 4 weeks, maybe we can convince the Department of Health to move us to a actual 1.5 and we can get some relief like that, because there's a lot of our restaurants that don't have, even with these relaxed restrictions, the capability to have outdoor seating in any significant manner that would allow them to really survive. And in Richland also, I think we're letting them move into some of the sidewalks and things. And so just be creative. And I think this could actually change the makeup of the city going forward. I mean, we may allow some of this going forward. So there is some, I think, the one positive I've seen out of this pandemic, not only are people coming together, I think, and helping each other out, but there's going to be some innovation and some creativity that comes out of this that I think we're going to have for a long time.
You bet. That's great. Mayor Martinez, how about Pasco? Some of the things you might be working on with local businesses to help them get open and do some business?
Yes, sir. So I signed the emergency order for the seating outdoors last week, and it was ratified this week by the city council. And it's basically a really relaxed application to basically draw out how it's going to work in your facility, and it gets approved by the city staff. And also we have 100 startup kits for small businesses, to provide them with like signage, plexiglass to put at their where the cashier stands. It's a kit that really allows the small businesses and helps them out to get these things in place to get started. And we're making it as simple as possible, but yet making sure we're compliant with the ADA rules for disabilities, making sure that it's safe, and everybody's cooperating. So I believe, and this is kudos to our staff who were basically just on point, ready for this to happen so that we put things in place. We're also, along with that, the CARES Act. We're providing funding, relief funding for these businesses as well that, unfortunately it's taken this long, but we have over 100 applicants for $1.3 million of this CARE Act of money that we're going to provide for relief, and looking forward to getting that to our small businesses so they can continue and survive.
That's great. Dr. Person and Rick, from the health district point of view, and we just had a discussion talking about, improving our numbers, the different indicators that we're monitoring that would allow us potentially to go to, Mayor Lukson said, maybe a full 1.5 and then someday a phase 2. But could you talk a little bit about some of those indicators, and are there ones that are more important at this phase? And I think, as we've all read and been a part of meetings, obviously one of the key indicators is how full is our healthcare system. So, the critical care beds, ICU beds, how much capacity do we have? And from when we first started off, we all talked about flattening the curve so that healthcare isn't overwhelmed. But can you talk about kind of the makeup of those indicators that, we share with Department of Health and that we can help focus on bringing those rates down, and where are we and how's it going? What do you see coming up in the future?
Should I start, or do you want to start, Rick?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, as you mentioned, Karl, I think the main thing that the state and the Department of Health is really focused on is our healthcare capacity. I mean, the other numbers are important, but really in terms of how they're affecting our healthcare capacity. Our hospitals are seeing more COVID-19 patients coming in, but as we've seen younger people getting infected, they're also seeing that not as many of them require ICUs, and they're not staying in quite as long. So I think that is a good sign, but I think we don't want to get too carried away. We've obviously seen across the country, cities and states where they really rushed to reopen and reopened widely. And those are the places like Houston that are, packing their children's hospital with adult patients. So I think that's something we are going to be watching. And, when you talk about flattening the curve, I think that really is still what we're looking at. Because if you look at when we started, we didn't have that many people in the hospital, which was good because most of the hospitals were struggling to get the personal protective equipment, the masks, the gloves, the gowns that they needed. We were struggling to get people tested. So if you think about some of the numbers we see in the hospital now, if we'd had those back in March, when people were staying at home, I think we would have been in a bad place. But we are making a lot of good progress. Our National Guard testing sites, very popular. I think they are probably doing close to 400 tests a day between the two of them. It looks like we'll have some additional mobile testing sites starting in the next week or so. So I think we are going to be able to get more people tested, which will be really good. I know I hear a lot of people say, we shouldn't test too many people because then we just find more positives. But, to remind people, we find positives because we have people sick in this community. There are a lot of counties that test a lot more than we do that actually have fewer cases because they have less disease in the community. So I think, there's still some areas where we can improve, but I think we've definitely made progress.
Great. Rick, anything to add?
So what I would like to add is the indicators as they are, they actually work as a whole, because it really tells us start to finish where we're at, and we talk and are very concerned about hospital capacity, but hospital capacity is the last indicator. So, I think Riza Khalil usually says it best, is that's a lagging indicator, because people don't become infected with COVID and go to the hospital. They come infected with COVID, get diagnosed, and a week later or 2 weeks later, they're sick enough where they actually need hospitalization. So all of those things from testing, diagnosis, to how we manage people who have been exposed, people who are sick, how do we isolate, how do we get people to quarantine, all of those things play into the system and how we're doing it, managing the disease in our community before they get to the hospital, because that's really how we protect them. So I think it's we don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that this is an entire system, and it together needs to keep working.
Oh, definitely. Any of the mayors want to add to this, or from a local perspective, talk about? I know that there's maybe biweekly meetings with the health district and kind of a leadership group, but add anything to this line of conversation as far as our indicators and what's coming up in the future?
Karl. These partnerships that we have with the health district and the counties and cities, and these calls that we have each week are really, really important. And one of the discussions that we're going to be probably having, at least from Kennewick, is the question that we're receiving a lot is, for example, in modified, in a 1.5, the 25% indoor seating. If it would, and these are questions that I'm getting from the people in our community, if it was 25% with no mask, okay, now that there's a statewide mask requirement that protects people. Why is that percentage still in place? Should it be higher? These are discussions that are probably going to have to go up to the governor's office, but they're legitimate. And really, right now, it's really difficult to give an answer on that because we don't know that answer yet. So as we continue to go forward, again, I think it's been mentioned many times. Now that we have this higher percentage of mask wearing, I'm really looking forward to the reduction in positive case counts here in the next 2-3 weeks.
That's great. Mayor Lukson or Mayor Martinez, anything to add?
I would just add that I mean I have about 1/10 of the medical knowledge, or 1/100th of Dr. Amy and Rick, but it's I'm learning as quickly as possible. All the I check the health district website every day. I'm learning all about the cases per 100,000 and the hospital capacity and the green indicators and the red indicators. So they put out a tremendous amount of information for the community, and we're having weekly meetings with the health district, and we're discussing with the Department of Health. So my dad was a longtime surgeon here, and my brother's a scientist. I'm the black sheep. I was the lawyer. So I'm doing my best to kind of train myself and at least become knowledgeable about what's going on. And I think that's the key, is just to make sure that we educate people. People do understand that this is significant. I had a conversation with someone the other day about, oh well, the hospitals are they're fine. I tried to explain to them that the capacity is going up, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I think our job is just to make sure that we put it in a manner that people can easily digest it, that we get people on the health district's website, that we show them that that this is a concern, and that we're trying to make sure that we have capacity in our hospitals, and that we keep our community safe. And so that's what I think our job is as mayors and leaders of the community.
Yeah, that's great. Mayor Martinez?
Yeah, so I guess very well explained by the other two mayors, but one of the things that I could share is that all these numbers, I mean, what an education for us, and there's so many ways to manipulate numbers. And some of the concerning things that I've run into is how many people just don't trust the numbers because they think they're manipulated. And we just have to do the best we can to, and basically depend on our leaders and the health district, and explain to our community that these are just numbers in certain areas, and we do the best we can with those numbers, and it's our job to ensure that they're as accurate as possible, and that they're not being manipulated in a way that would bring mistrust to the community. It just amazes me how you could always manipulate numbers, but there's realities, and the reality is that this virus is spreading and has spread, and we're trying to control it, and just trying to ensure to our citizens that we're as transparent as we can be. And although we trust, but we verify and ask the hard questions to ensure that the numbers that are coming out are valid, and that they're gonna give a good representation of what we have here. So, we're trying to figure out where these numbers are coming from. We've had different types of information come in so that we know where the hot zones are at, where to focus on, where to put these readers out in the public in both languages to ensure that everybody's getting the information. And again, just doing what we can to be transparent and showing that we are, using these numbers and making sure they're as accurate as possible. So that's what I could share with that.
That's great. Thank you.
Piggyback on that, if I could, and just make sure, I hate to see people criticize the health district and act like they have some political agenda. I mean, Dr. Amy and Rick and their team are providing just the facts to the community. And, I know them, I think, well enough now at this point that, they have the same goal as us. They want us to be safe, and they want us to open up safely. I'm sure they don't enjoy sitting in their homes and not being able to do anything, just like the rest of us. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that the stuff changes, statistics change, or how we report them based on, and Dr. Amy could speak to this, on the state and different requirements. At first we had, presumed positive and all these things, but there's no agenda behind this. There's no, nefarious political agenda to keep everyone locked into their home. So I want people to know that.
That's a great point. And I think, for all of us just to admit, like, this is something that we've never been through. And I know we all hear unprecedented and stuff like that. I don't want to overuse some of these descriptors, but that is the case, the truth of where we're at. We've never been through this before. And I think we've talked about it, on previous sessions, that most people in the community didn't even know really what the health district did before. And I think the reality of it is the history of the health district started 100 years ago when we had the last major pandemic. And, unless you're getting a septic tank test, perk test done, or you own a restaurant and you're getting inspected, people don't even know that the health district might exist there. So I think all the mayors have been really clear on, like, there's no conspiracy. We're all collectively working on this and doing the best we can. And that ultimately what everybody's trying to do is make sure that we all stay healthy. There's no hidden agenda, and that's what we're really focused on. So I think those are really, really good points. Let's move into, and I know it's not anybody's area, but there are some questions about school reopening. And maybe we can talk about that from each city's perspective, and then from the health district perspective, as far as working with the school district to identify, maybe what some of the measurements are, and then some of the standards for school and the potential for reopening. I think we're mainly talking K-12 school here, but let's start off with the health district, and maybe Dr. Person or Rick, you guys could kick it off as far as the conversation and what are some things that the health district's watching as far as school reopening in the fall.
Sure. Oh yeah, Rick, go ahead. I don't want to monopolize.
That's not. Amy's an introvert, and usually she doesn't like to talk. So we've been working with our superintendents for several weeks now. As soon as the OSPI guidance came out for schools, we stood up kind of a team on our staff, pulled some people for some other things to work directly with them, and are holding weekly conversations, working on helping them be consistent in their planning. And really, we're kind of in the infancy of trying to develop those things. Everybody has a little bit of a draft plan, but trying to adapt to what the guidance says and what's available and what room they have within their school district to do things correctly. And it's probably, if you threw a plan out today and said, this is what we're going to do, by the time August 1st would roll around, it would have to be changed. So there's a lot of work to do, and the schools are working very diligently. They've got teams on it. We're there to support them and hope that we can get this through and get this done safely. And I know Doctor has been working with them as well.
Dr. Person, anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I think the thing I would add is, this is really another area where you see that because this isn't anything we've ever had to deal with, we can't pull out, this is what we know works in every pandemic for kind of reopening schools. And I think we're seeing, even since the initial guidance came out, we've seen statements from the American Academy of Pediatrics, talking about maybe the 6 foot distance isn't mandatory if people are wearing masks. So, how does that jibe with what OSPI and the State Department of Health have initially come up with? So I know the school districts are having conversations with the state about, are there possibilities for maybe changing some of that? So I think this is something that, it's, I think, hard for people to some ways accept, is that, we all try to use our best judgment and the best information that we have, but that information does change, I won't say hourly, but I think it does change, weekly. So what we're talking about now might not be what schools look like. I think the main thing is that we do know kids in general don't get as sick with COVID. as adults do, other than the few that do develop that sort of more severe multi-system inflammatory syndrome. We also think that kids don't transmit COVID as much as adults do, which is very different from influenza, which is usually the hallmark of what we use for when we think about pandemics.
Oh, definitely. That's great. From the city's perspective, maybe we'll go to Mayor Martinez first. Have you been in discussions with the school district? Is there anything the cities are considering or thinking about as far as, helping schools with reopening in your local district?
Well, what I can share is, and I want to send a kudo out to Michelle Whitney. She has literally been pulling her hair out and just working diligently. And I've never seen anybody more passionate about what they're doing. She's just been working so hard with her staff. And I can tell you that a large part of my personal immediate family works for the school district. And I know that they're coming out with all these different options. And as it was said earlier, things are going to change. But what they're doing right now is providing all these different options of how we're going to reopen our schools, from having a 2-day week, to have 50% of the students in class, to the curriculum that they're going to provide and how they're going to provide it to the students. They've just been working tirelessly to figure out all these different options. And when the time comes, there'll be a decision made and to make sure that our kids stay safe as possible. And there's no easy answer. There's never an easy answer to these type of activities. But, I served on the school board for 5 years, and, Michelle and Sandra Hill, they're like two peas in a pod. And I tell you what, I'm proud to have them there. I'm sure the other superintendents have been working tirelessly as well. And the way they're working together with the state superintendent, just to get all these things and plans in place to figure out what option they're going to choose to get school started. So I know that there's a lot of people in the community that are just desperately wanting their kids to get back to a norm or to the socializing with other kids. And it's really difficult for everyone, but I can assure you that the superintendents are working hard to get things in place and then having to select one option when the time comes.
That's great. Thank you. Mayor Britton, how about Kennewick and discussions with the school district there?
Well, Karl, we have a really good relationship with the Kennewick School District, and really whatever they need, we will assist them on. Right now, that is changing. It's very fluid at the state level in OSPI and DOH and our local health district. And, I hope some sort of plan gets finalized here at some point, because a lot of parents are pretty nervous right now. They want to know what's going to be happening. They have employment and childcare needs that they need to look at and get in place. But right now, we will do whatever the school district needs us to do.
That's great. Mayor Lukson in Richland with the school district.
Yeah, I also, before I got into that, the esteemed mayor of West Richland, Brent Gary, sent me a text. He wanted to make sure that we all knew he was sorry he was unable to make it this morning. He had a prior early morning commitment, and West Richland echoes the voice of our sister cities, and we stand tall together, speaking with one voice. So just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you for that. And I have to admit, I dropped the ball with Mayor Gary. He wasn't able to attend, but we did want to give a shout out to him. So thanks for that, Mayor Lukson.
Absolutely. And then,
Ryan, did you say esteemed?
Yeah, that was a lot of lot of sarcasm.
Did he put that in his text, or did you add that?
I added that point, but it's heavy on the sarcasm.
That's okay.
About 90% of what I say is sarcastic, just heads up. But this school thing is a passion of mine, not only as a parent with a second grader that learns infinitely better at home than homeschooling with me while I try to manage two jobs. But I've been in constant contact with the superintendent, some of the school board members, and some of the teachers that I know, and trying to work with them. We had Dr. Schulte was on our city council meeting on Tuesday and gave us an update on where they're at. And we're willing to provide all the resources that the city can and helping them reopen. And I just told him that I personally, I've seen the American Pediatric Association talks about 3 feet, like Dr. Amy said, and the CDC came out with some very confusing guidelines. It was like grandma's porridge. It was like too hot, too cold, medium. I don't even understand what they put out, but it was different options on low risk, high risk, medium risk, maybe depending on where your community is. But I hope that we provide that the OSPI will provide us some flexibility, because my concern is that, these K through 5 kids, if we don't get them in school, we're going to have a whole generation of kids left behind. I mean, we have, especially some of these lower socioeconomic kids I know, and I have some friends of mine that teach in some of these schools, and they struggle full time, and if this part-time stuff is not going to work, and we got parents that are working, and these kids are going to be left at home, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. I mean, and that's what I told the governor. I said, we don't live in a bubble. When these kids aren't in school, there's a lot of kids that are just going to be running around the streets, and they're not going to be zooming in all day, and so I worry about that. And I just told him, Dr. Schulte, that I refuse to accept that we can't figure this out. And we've been looking also at maybe options of opening up the fairgrounds buildings and giving parents options. And, if we have to space them out, that's fine. But I, for one, am not going to be quiet about my advocacy of having kids go back to school. So, and that's somewhat selfish, but there you go.
That's perfect. That's a great comment and a good perspective. Even, are there other spaces we could open up and, increase that social distance? That's great. Well, we are just about out of time. So I'm just going to remind everybody, this is Coffee with Karl. Thank you all for participating. TRIDEC is your local economic development agency. We are focused on economic growth. All of the cities, counties, ports are our partners, and we really appreciate that partnership. But let's just go around, and maybe if everybody wants to make a closing statement, we'll start with Mayor Britton.
Thanks again, Karl, for inviting me to this event here. I just want to say to the Kennewick community and the Tri-Cities that you guys are doing a great job. Let's continue to wear our masks. To the local businesses, we're doing everything we can to assist you within our ability and our limits as a city council and a city. It's moving forward. I think that's a positive step. And again, just bear with us, and we'll get out of this. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. Mayor Lukson, you want to go next?
Yeah, I just want our community to know that we're working as hard as we can to open up safely and open up as much as we can, as safely as we can. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes. We're all working very hard. The health district is working to the bone, and we're trying to get them as many resources as we can and advocating for them. So we just need them to do their part, and we need everybody to come together and try to get tested if you have symptoms, even if they're very mild. I know some people actually personally that I convinced to get tested that were later on COVID positive with very, very mild symptoms. So continue to get tested, continue to social distance, wear your masks. And if we do that, then we're going to open up. So I think that's the message of where we're at. And I think I can say that on behalf of myself and the esteemed Mayor Gary.
Thank you. And thanks for the shout out to Mayor Gary. Mayor Martinez.
Yes, I just want to advocate to our community that we're going to be here for you, and we're going to do the best we can to continue on a positive path towards getting things back to normal. I just want to also echo that we live in a wonderful community, and the only way we're going to keep it wonderful is by working together and respect each other and celebrate our similarities and respect our differences. I just want to shout it out to the community. As long as we stay together and focus on beating this virus at the end, we're going to be successful, and we're going to do everything we can to do our part as leaders in the community to work together and be victorious at the end. So thank you very much, and always appreciate the support. Don't forget to thank your leadership, thank the people who are working behind the scenes, and keeping them motivated, because I tell you what, they're working tirelessly for everyone. So thank you very much, community, and we'll just keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Martinez. And Dr. Amy and Rick, do you guys have any last words of wisdom or statements?
My words of wisdom.
Dr. Amy wants to talk today. Look at her go.
That's awesome. I'm not doing a good job as a moderator, I should ask. Dr. Amy, would you like to have a closing statement?
Sure. And, actually, the only thing I'm going to say is that it's been so interesting to go from most people, again, not knowing what public health was to, right now, I don't have to say, what do we need the community to do? Because Ryan said it for me. He said all the things: get tested, wear your mask. And so when we've got, mayors pushing public health messages as hard as public health does, then I think, yeah, this community is going to get through this.
That's great. Thank you. And Rick?
Well, and I think I would echo that. I mean, I think Ryan said it very well, that those are the things we need to do. And those are the things that right now I think we're thanking the public for doing, that this community has stepped forward as a community to do that. And most specifically, it's very heartening to see the business support from, the chambers, from TRIDEC, from, Visit Tri-Cities. All of these groups are stepping forward as well. And our elected leaders are standing in front. They're not standing behind the health department. They're standing in front of the health department and delivering our message. And we can't say enough about that partnership and how important that is to succeed here as a community, because that's what we all want.
That's great. And I appreciate the partnership message. And I'll just give a last shout out to TC Open and Safe, which is our local coalition of business organizations and cities and downtown associations that have come together with our pledge. That is one of the requirements for modified reopening, which, again, we appreciate that partnership, so that there's some value in that work that we've been able to do. And I'll just also throw out there, we also have the hashtag Minute Mask Challenge that is growing on social media all the time. So if anybody wants to take that less than a minute and tell people why you're wearing a mask, it sure helps spread the message. So thanks everybody for your time today on Coffee with Karl. Really appreciate your participation. This has been a great discussion. I think really representative of our whole community. So thanks everybody and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.